Hey, we want you to grow to health. And when I say we, I mean me. I'm Chris. I'm from Octopi. And this is Kayla. Kayla named Octopi. And we are here to help. We're here to help you to learn how to grow. So in our new Tutorial Tuesday series, we're going to get down and get into some of the weeds on growing indoors, growing your own medicine. For the first time, many, if not most of you. So, on we go. We're going to look at growing indoors. Specifically, I know you can grow outdoors, but we're not going to talk about that now. We're going to grow indoors because mainly we can control our environment. So right now, it's early May. It's almost 20 degrees below normal. For the last month or more, it's been 10 to 20 degrees colder than normal. And for the 7, at least maybe even the 10 day, colder than normal, 10 to 20 degrees. So what's happening out there? It's not just this year, it's previous years. I'm getting old enough to recognize these trends. And it's going to be harder and harder to get outdoors to grow your crop. That's not just cannabis, but it's a lot of different things. So take these lessons. Maybe you might need to move it on to your own food in the near future. So we're going to grow. We're going to look at two different ways. We're going to look at growing in tents, and we're going to look at growing in larger rooms. We're going to be looking at each one on different weeks. So this week we're going to talk about tents. Next week we're going to talk about grow rooms. And basically we're just looking at growing small plants versus growing big plants. We're going to look at growing 12 plants in each case. Again, small versus big. How do we relate each to each other and how do they differ? Starting out with tents, you need the facility, which is what I'm calling the tent. The facility needs to have a strong frame. It needs to have good fabric. It has to have a good seal. You don't want stinky air floating out. You don't want light penetrating in. Both of those can give you, bad outcomes. We're looking for the best outcome there. So the zippers are really important. It needs to have them go both ways and be nice and strong. And then the last thing is all the ducting, the outlets, where you can run in electrical cords or run through tubing for ventilation. All of that has to be available in the right places and be able to be sealed. The tents that we're going to be looking at are two sizes because you need two tents to be able to do this perpetual grow. We're going to basically be growing one plant every week. We'll start off and then we're going to take cuttings and continue it through. We'll have a perpetual grow. So instead of having 12 plants come in all at one time, where you've got all of this work, all of this stuff to deal with, when you're done, you'll just have a constant flow. You can change your strains, you can use one strain, that you can play with. But basically, we're going to just do a plant a week or so. Our two tents are for the two stages of growth. So the vegetative stage is the 4x4 tent. And if we were going to be using a tent for the flower, we want it to be about 4 times the size of our vegetative tent. So we're either going to get an 8x8 tent or make pretend we have an 8x8 tent. One of those two. Which one do you think it'll be? You think we'll pull me up for a new 8x8 tent? I don't think so either. We're going to pretend. So, 4x4, 8x8, and then the height is important. These are about 78 inches tall, and you want enough height to be able to have room to hang a light, which is going to take about 12 inches. The octopods down here are about 20 inches when they're filled with dirt. So you have to remember, grow below. Gives you about 4 foot of space to have your plant and the space between the light and the plant itself. So we're going to shoot for having about a 2 foot tall plant. And with 4 of them, we're going to be playing with the emancipators here. With 4 of them, we should fill in that space pretty quickly, the available surface area. That's where the light is getting the actual penetration into the top of the plants. So we want to fill that in, get somewhere between a fourth and a third of the way, then we'll flip it to flower. And the way those things are growing now, that's going to be pretty soon. Where am I going to put the tent? Well, we've just been in this big open room, and it's been winter, so it's been really good. The excess heat actually helps warm the house. It's been vegetative state most of the time, so it doesn't smell, although this one's getting a little funky, you know. If I was concerned about it, I would put in a scrubber, which is basically a charcoal filter with a fan on it that just recirculates the air. I could put it inside the tent or I could put it inside the room. Either way, it's pretty effective. And that's something to consider as we move forward in keeping the smell down. How do you use that scrubber? Back to where are we going to put it? We're going to move out of this room. It's one of my favorite rooms in the house, so my big window and doors all blocked off. I want access. We're going to probably just move into the basement. There's plenty of room. The basement is a great place. So the basement is cool in the summer and warm during the winter, relatively so. So it's a constant environment, which is a lot simpler to maintain once you start running heat and having to dispose of it. So having that constant temperature makes it easy to work in a basement. It also has access to the water. It's easy to hook up. I'm going to show you something at the end here. It's worth staying to see this little tip. But access to water, access to ventilation, access to electricity. Those are the big three in my mind. What do you have to have? So you have to have fresh air come in, you have to have stinky air come out. Where's the stinky air going to go? Well, depending where you're at, it might go right up into your attic. So you can scrub it and then put in like a bathroom fan that just pulls it right up into the attic. It'll dissipate in through the vents and all, and that might be sufficient. You might want to put it into an old chimney, like an old house like this, as an unused chimney. I could duct it right in there. Again, put my ventilation right through the system, out the chimney, or maybe even into your plumbing vent pipe. If you are out of all of those solutions, then you can go through the window. Mount a duct with a vent on the end of it, and mount your window so it can't be broken through or broken in, but you can just make a frame, a solid plate, go right out a window. Try to keep it as inconspicuous as possible, but that can be done if all else fails. So the other thing that's important then is access to electricity. Make sure you've got enough for your lights, your fans, and so forth. You don't need too much generally, but make sure that that's sufficient. The other thing is water. In the basement, you usually have a sink or access to your plumbing, makes it easy to get water. So what I did is this. I got a fixture for putting into your plumbing that hooks up for a refrigerator water service system. So here's a picture of it. It's just up in the recesses of the floor, and it's got a tubing that comes then. I've got a long tube that I can stretch out. It doesn't stretch out far enough, so I've got the reservoirs on carts, but I could bring a tubing all the way to where my tubs are over here. The general idea is you have a tubing, then that comes to this fixture here, which is basically a shutoff valve. So you've got an indoor hose. Costs like $20 or less. So that's that part. The next time that we meet on the tent side, we're going to look at lights, filters, and octopods. So until then, grow in peace, stay safe, be smart, and later on,